hell isn't chaos. It isn't firestorms and cartoonish devils brandishing pitchforks. Hell is structure precise, calculated, and unrelenting. Imagine not a furnace, but an ancient machine carved in stone and ice, each gear grinding with divine mathematics. Every sign has its weight, and every weight finds its perfect circle. There is no guesswork, no mercy, only geometry. Picture the air, not burning, but freezing, so cold it cuts the lungs like glass. Hear the silence between screams, a silence heavy as stone, punctuated only by the creak of ice under bodies locked forever in place. See the glow-narrow beams of occult light slicing through blackness, illuminating faces twisted not by accident but by symmetry. Each torment is tailored, each punishment a mirror, not chaos but order. Most people think of hell as a threat to frighten children, a story whispered at night to keep the masses obedient. But Dante was not writing superstition. He was writing a blueprint, taxonomy of sin, a moral architecture where every indulgence, every hunger, every betrayal becomes a chamber you must inhabit. His Inferno is not fantaside, his initiation, a descent through symbols as old as humanity itself. What if hell is not a place you stumble into, but a reflection you've already built? What if every choice, every craving, every quiet betrayal chisels another step downward? And what if the true horror is not that hell awaits you after death, but that you are already rehearsing its rituals, one compromise at a time? When Dante opened the gates of hell, he did not descend into chaos, he descended into structure. This is the first horror of the Inferno. It strips away the illusion that damnation is random. What he mapped was not a pit of screaming shadows, but a system, an architecture designed with surgical precision. Hell is a machine, and every sin is a cog. Look closely at the 9 circles. They are not a pile of horrors scattered without reason. They are layers, each one colder, tighter, more exact than the last. Lust spins in endless wind, gluttony sinks into filth, greed collides in useless labor. Wrath thrashes in a swamp, heresy lies burning in stone tombs, violence fractures into rings of blood, forest, and fire. Fraud spirals into 10 ditches of deception. And at the center, treachery freezes into stillness. Do you see it? Each layer is not improvisation, it is geometry. Every punishment reflects its sign like a mirror sharpened into mathematics. The system does not scream, it calculates. Sensory fragments linger in the text like warnings. The roar of hurricane winds that never rest. The stench of cold mud swallowing the gluttonous. The metallic reek of boiling blood in Phlegethon. These are not theatrics, they are coordinates, each sensation a marker on Dante's map. His hell is not a chaos of suffering, it is a cartography of consequence. And deeper still, there is order in the hierarchy itself. The sins of appetite, lust, gluttony, greed occupy the upper circles, almost pitiful in their weakness. These are failures of discipline, the body devouring itself. But as you descend, the air grows heavier, the sins more deliberate. Wrath is not weakness, it is a lens. Heresy is not excess, it is ideology. Violence is not craving, it is attack. Fraud is not impulse, it is intention. Treachery is not hunger, it is betrayal. Each layer is colder because each layer is more calculated, more deliberate, further from the warmth of humanity. Hell is not about volume, it is about precision. The further down you go, the sharper the cut. This is the architecture of evil. A descent, not into noise, but into symmetry. Dante's hell is like a cathedral inverted, every circle a floor of a machine built to expose the soul. And in that exposure lies the second horror. Because this structure does not feel foreign, it feels familiar. It feels like the systems you already live in. Look around. Classrooms where children sit in rows repeating mantras, workplaces where hours are measured, weighed, and drained, governments where laws classify, categorize, and condemn. Every system humans build echoes the geometry of hell. Repetition, hierarchy, ritualized consequence. Dante was not only mapping the afterlife, he was revealing what we already build on Earth. Hell is not just below us, it is around us, and it is inside us. Occultists have always whispered that symbols are technologies. Dante's circles are symbols crystallized into landscapes. Lust becomes wind because desire without anchor is movement without ground. Gluttony becomes sludge because indulgence is joy drowned into habit. Greed becomes collision because possession devours itself. These are not metaphors, they are sigils, binding shapes that trap the soul in the form of its obsession. Each circle is a sigil drawn across eternity. Each punishment is not imposed, is revealed. And here lies the esoteric truth. The architecture is not God's revenge, but the soul's geometry. The soul has shape. Choices carve grooves, habits etch lines, desires warp angles. Over time, the shape hardens. And when flesh dissolves, what remains is that architecture. Hell is simply the unveiling of what you have already built inside yourself. Dante was not inventing torment, he was decoding it. Imagine your own soul as a cathedral of mirrors. Every thought, every craving, every compromise lays another stone. If you surrender to rage, the walls echo with thunder. If you surrender to greed, the halls fill with clashing weights. If you surrender to betrayal, frost spreads across every pillar. You do not wait for hell, you construct it. When the time comes, you step inside your own design. This is why Dante's hell feels so alive. Because it is not myth, it is blueprint. It does not terrify with demons leaping from shadows. It terrifies with recognition. You have felt the winds of lust. You've tasted the numbness of gluttony. You have collided endlessly with the burdens of greed. You have drowned in wrath. You have frozen in betrayal. Hell is not foreign, it is familiar. It is not chaos, it is architecture. And architecture is merciless. It does not forgive. Once a wall is built, it stands. Once a circle is carved, it holds. The only way out is not to deny it, but to see it. To admit the blueprint, to recognize the machine you are already turning. Dante descended not to scare you, but to guide you through the structure. Because only by knowing its design can you refuse to become part of it. So look again at the circles, not as myth, but as geometry. Each one is a sigil, a blueprint, a ritual space. And ask yourself, which floor have you already stepped onto? Which room are you already furnishing? Because the descent does not begin after death. The descent begins the moment you confuse chaos for freedom, when in truth you are building order, and order cold, precise, and merciless. The order of hell. In Dante's hell, punishment is never random. It is language symbolic, exact, relentless. Every circle speaks in images older than alphabets, each torment a sigil etched into the soul. The Inferno is not just a map of sin, it is a grammar of symbols, a ritual alphabet where meaning becomes environment. Take lust. Dante could have set these souls aflame, scorched them with desire. Instead, he gave them wind hurricane gales without anchor, bodies swept endlessly through black skies. Why wind? Because desire without discipline is motion without ground. A storm that never rests, never lands, never satisfies. This is not spectacle, it is code. The wind is a sigil for restlessness, for passion turned prison. The souls of lust are not being punished by wind, they are wind, translated into movement. Then gluttony. No fire here either. Instead, mud, slush, endless cold rain. A world of filth where Cerberus, the three-headed hunger, chews and snarls above them. Gluttony is not scorched, it is drowned, suffocated, degraded. The mud is a symbol. Appetite reduced to sludge, indulgence without joy. These souls are not being torn apart, they are dissolving as if their craving ate the flesh of dignity itself. Mud is not accident, is mere. Greed too is not tortured, but mocked. Hoarders and squanderers, locked in eternal collision, rolling massive weights against each other. The symbol is painfully clear. Wealth without purpose becomes burden. Identity collapses into object. They do not carry gold, they are carried by it. The clashing stones echo endlessly, a ritual chant of futility. Here Dante shows us that greed does not burn, it grinds. Each image is precise, and each is ancient. Storms, mud, stone, fire, ice, these are primal symbols, the same archetypes magicians etched into runes and grimoires. To the occult mind, symbols are not decoration, they are technology. A circle, a triangle, a serpent, a flame. Each one bypasses logic and speaks directly to the subconscious. Dante's hell works the same way. He doesn't argue with you. He shows you. And in seeing, you understand. This is why hell feels inevitable. The moment you hear of lust swept by storms, you know it is right. The symbol resonates. The punishment doesn't need proof, carries its truth in imagery. It is archetypal justice. A code so old the body itself recognizes it. As the descent deepens, the symbols grow darker. Wrath is not fire, but swamp. The wrathful thrash endlessly in black water, their rage made literal, their violence sinking them deeper into mire. The sullen drown beneath the surface, hatred silent but suffocating. Water becomes symbol, here not purity, but stagnation. Their emotions are not burned away, they are drowned, suffocated by their own density. Heresy is stone tombs filled with fire, not chaos, but structure. Heretics denied the soul's immortality, so now they are locked in graves that burn but never consume. The tomb is symbol, it says. You denied eternity, now you lie in it. The fire inside the tomb is pride burning itself. Their punishment is not random flame, but architecture, symbol fused with consequence. Violence fractures into three landscapes: river of boiling blood, forest of bleeding trees, desert of burning sand. Each terrain is a symbol. Blood river for murderers. They drowned others, so they drown in life's essence. Forest for suicides. They rejected their bodies, so they are given twisted forms rooted in suffering. Desert storm for blasphemers and usurers. Sterile, barren, flame rain, scarring endlessly. The landscapes are not environments, they are mirrors. Archetypal stages where the soul becomes its own symbol. But nowhere is the symbolic grammar sharper than in fraud. Here the images multiply. Flatterers drowning in filth. Hypocrites crushed by gilded cloaks. False prophets with heads twisted backward. Liars rotting in disease. Each image is exact, grotesque, unforgettable. Fraud corrupts meaning, so its symbols corrupt the body. The body becomes the lie. The cloak is beautiful outside, leaden within. Prophet looks forward but sees nothing. The thief loses identity itself, devoured by serpents until no form remains. Fraud is not punished by pen, it is punished by inversion, the body turned into its own falsehood. And finally, treachery. The frozen lake. Silence, stillness, absence. The ultimate symbol, betrayal is not noise, but negation. Trust shattered becomes ice, time frozen, tears crystallize before they fall. Judas, Brutus, Cassius, gnawed forever in Satan's jaws, their names etched into treachery itself. The deepest truth is not flame, it is cold. Not reg, it is erasure. Ice is the final symbol because nothing else captures the void left when trust is annihilated. Dante's Inferno is therefore less a place than a ritual text. Each circle is a glyph, each punishment an image coded into the soul. Read it not as theology, but as grimoire, and you see it clearly. Hell is written in symbols because symbols are the only language the subconscious obeys. And here lies the occult secret. You are already speaking this language. You dream in symbols. You remember images long after words fade. Live surrounded by logos, brands, flags, icons, modern sigils built on the same grammar. Dante knew what magicians whispered. Symbols bypass reason, reshape perception, program belief. His hell is simply the ultimate initiation, forcing you to face the symbols of your own distortions. So ask yourself, which symbols are you already feeding? The storm of craving, the mud of numb indulgence, cloak of hypocrisy, the ice of betrayal. Because whether or not you believe in hell, the symbols are alive. They wait in your subconscious. They shape your rituals. And in the end, you will not be judged by words. You will be judged by symbols, the ones you chose to live inside. Blood is older than gold. Before coins rang in the marketplace or contracts were signed in ink, the world traded in blood. Every empire, every cult, every altar understood this. To give blood was to pay with essence itself. Dante knew it too. That is why in the Inferno, when sin reaches its most violent form, the landscape shifts into a currency exchange carved in flesh. Look at the seventh circle, dedicated to violence. Here the symbolism turns visceral. Murderers, tyrants, and warlords are submerged in the river Phlegethona, boiling torrent of blood that scalds but never consumes. The deeper your crime, the deeper you sink. Some stand only waist deep, others drown completely, their mouths opening and closing in bubbles of red. Centaurs patrol the riverbank with arrows, firing at any soul who dares rise above the level it earned. It is a chilling vision. Blood given, blood owed. Violence produces blood, and so the violent are baptized in its endless flood. Their payment is perpetual immersion, but not all violence is outward. Dante makes a crueler turn in the second ring of this circle. Those who turn their hands against themselves, the suicides. Here the landscape twists into a forest of black thorns. The souls of those who rejected their own blood, their own flesh, are transformed into trees gnarled. Brittle, grotesque, harpies perch on their branches, clawing, tearing, drinking. When a branch is broken, it bleeds, and from the wound emerges a voice, faint and pained. Why do you rip me? These souls no longer own bodies, and by discarding the gift of blood, they are denied it forever. They are reduced to bleeding wood, speaking only when violated. The harpies feast, because in life, the suicides denied the sanctity of their own essence. Blood cannot be rejected without consequence. In hell, it reasserts itself as torment. And then the innermost ring, the barren desert of fire. Here stand the blasphemers, sodomites, and usurers. Their violence was against God, nature, or divine order itself. They are punished not with rivers or forests, but with a landscape that denies blood altogether. Sterile sand, scorched under endless rain of flame, the absence of fertility, of growth, of pulse. Their crime is desecration of flow, so their punishment is desolation. They still bleed, their skin cracked by fire, but the land beneath them drinks nothing. Their essence spills into void, useless, wasted. This is perhaps the cruelest economy of all, to bleed into nothingness. Dante's vision reveals a truth occultists have whispered for millennia. Blood is not simply fluid, it is vitality, memory, contract. In rituals, blood was spilled to consecrate pacts, to feed demons, to open gates. It was the currency that no spirit could refuse. In hell, the logic is inverted. Blood is no longer offered. Willingly it is demanded, extracted, forced. The violent do not choose sacrifice, they live inside it. Their existence becomes the altar. Consider the sensory brutality of it. The metallic temps rising from boiling rivers, the crackle of flesh splitting under fire, the slow drip of sap blood in the suicide forest. Dante makes you taste it, smell it, hear it. He wanted you to feel the price, because the point is not spectacle, it is ledger. Every act of violence withdraws from the account of life. Balance is exact. Payment is inescapable. But blood as currency does not end in the seventh circle. Its shadow runs through the Inferno. Think of Cerberus, the three-headed hound of gluttony, eternally clawing and biting at those wallowing in filth. He is hunger incarnate, a demon of consumption, gnawing flesh as payment for excess. Think of Judas in the ninth circle, frozen but forever chewed in Satan's jaws. His blood endlessly swallowed and spat, a parody of communion. Even fraud, seemingly abstract, becomes bloody in its imagery. Mutilation, serpents sinking teeth, the body torn and corrupted. In hell, every lie, every betrayal, eventually bleeds, because blood is the one truth you cannot counterfeit. And yet, the most haunting insight Dante offers is not about gore, but about economy. Hell functions like a marketplace inverted. Each circle demands payment in the very element the sinner abused. Lust pays in motion, gluttony pays in filth, greed pays in collision, but violence pays in blood. Not a metaphor, literal. The body becomes the coin, the forest becomes the ledger, desert becomes the empty vault. The balance sheet is carved in veins. Now shift your gaze to the present. Blood sacrifice has not vanished, it has evolved. Wars are still rivers of blood, only now sanctified by flags instead of gods. Our labor, our exhaustion, our time, these are metaphoric blood, drained daily to feed the machine. Every sleepless night. Every drained hour of life force is a drop offer to invisible altars. Corporations, nations, systems. Media outrage bleeds your attention. Economic cycles bleed your vitality. The altar drinks, and you are left hollow. The economy remains blood economy, only masked. Dante's genius is that he forces recognition. You may never drown in phlegethon, but you have felt your veins burn with rage. You may never stand in a desert of fire, but you have felt your essence poured into emptiness. You may never bleed as a tree, but you have felt the silence of despair, the denial of your own worth. These are not distant punishments. They are living patterns. The architecture of hell is not a prophesy, it is a mirror. Blood was always the oldest currency, and it remains the one you still spend. The only choice is whether you sacrifice it willingly for something sacred or bleed it unwillingly into a system that consumes without end. The violent in Dante's hell made their choices long before they arrived. They signed their contracts in crimson, and when the time came, hell simply collected. So ask yourself, where is your blood already flowing? To whom are you sacrificing your vitality? Because in Dante's vision, ignorance is no defense. Every drop counts, and every ledger closes. And when it does, you may find yourself standing in a river, a forest, or a desert, recognizing too late that the oldest currency was never gold. It was always blood. Every circle of Dante's hell is more than a punishment. It is a contract revealed. You do not simply arrive in these landscapes. You agreed to them long before you knew the ink was dry. Every lustful thought, every greedy calculation, every fraudulent whisper was a signature. The Inferno is a library of contracts, each soul bound not by demons with chains, but by their own consent. Think of Faust, centuries later, bargaining with Mephistopheles. His story is not new, it is only a retelling of what Dante had already mapped. The souls in hell are not prisoners, they are signatories. The lustful who surrendered to desire without restraint did not stumble into the storm, they signed to be swept. The gluttonous who drowned themselves in indulgence did not fall into filth by accident, they pledged themselves to the mud. The greedy who clashed over gold are locked in an eternal push-pull because that was the contract they wrote. Possession as identity, wealth as worth. Dante's brilliance is this. He shows us that every sin is not chaos, but covenant. The circle of fraud makes this truth unmistakable. 10 ditches, each one a clause in hell's great charter. The flatterers drowning in filth. What else is flattery but a contract, a trait of truth for approval? The hypocrites in gilded cloaks, what else is hypocrisy but an agreement to wear one mask outside while binding yourself in lead within? The false prophets with heads twisted backward, they signed away their own vision in exchange for the illusion of foresight. Each punishment is not arbitrary. It is the exact consequence of a contract fulfilled. They wrote it. Hell enforced it. Sensory fragments burn this idea into the imagination. The sound of parchment tearing as lies are exposed. The stench of burning seals as contracts are enforced. The cold weight of invisible chains that tighten each time a soul repeats its vow. You can almost hear the whispers in the dark. You agreed. You signed. You knew. And this is what makes Dante's hell more terrifying than any medieval sermon. There is no devil trickster here forging contracts in secret. The signatures are yours. Every repetition of desire, every indulgence in rage, every betrayal of trust is a pen stroke. The contract does not require ritual, it is ritual. Your life is the signing, your soul is the ink. Occult traditions always understood this logic. To summon a demon, you make an offering. To receive knowledge, you pledge obedience. The pact is simple: request, offering, agreement, consequence. Modern life is filled with the same structure, only disguised. A labor contract trades your time, your energy, your health. A debt contract trades your future. If even a click on, I agree to terms and conditions is ritual. A binding agreement accepted without thought. These are not demonic in the literal sense, but they echo the same occult architecture. Desire exchanged for bondage, benefit weighed against sacrifice. The inversion is chilling. In ancient pacts, awareness was required. The sorcerer knew what they were trading: the blood, the vow, the price. But in modern contracts, the awareness is stripped away. You sign without seeing, you sacrifice without admitting, yet the binding is just as real. In Dante's hell, ignorance is no excuse. The pact stands because you lived it. Think of Judas in the frozen jaws of Satan. His betrayal was not an accident. It was a contract. Accepted silver, and with it wrote himself into treachery. His payment was immediate, his consequence eternal. In the ninth circle, every soul is a contract incarnate. Betrayers of kin, of country, of guests, of benefactors. Each one knew, chose, signed, and now each one is frozen in their own claws. The occult resonance here is undeniable. Contracts are spells. They bind because they are written in belief, in repetition, and intent. Dante's hell is simply the archive of all contracts fulfilled. The irony is bitter. Those who signed never thought they were signing. They thought they were choosing, indulging, surviving. But every choice is a covenant. Every indulgence is an oath. Every betrayal is a clause. Hell is the notarization of the soul. Modern eyes may scoff. Do not sign contracts with demons, they say. But do you not? You sacrifice sleep and health for status? Is that not a pact? When you betray trust for profit, is that not a signature? When you repeat lies until they shape your reality, have you not entered agreement with deception itself? The demon does not need to appear. The demon is the contract. Sensory layers make it undeniable. Imagine the sound of quills scratching in the dark, 1,000 signatures echoing across time. Imagine the sight of parchment burning, words glowing like embers as the clauses manifest into environment. Imagine the weight of your own breath becoming oath, your own blood becoming seal. This is what Dante forces you to face. Not chains, not flames, but ink. And yet, there is a terrible mercy here. If contracts bind, contracts can also be broken. Ritualists spoke of renunciations, writing the pact on paper, burning it, declaring it null. Dante does not offer that in hell, because by then, the contract is eternal. But while alive, awareness is power. To see the contract is to regain the pen. To name the vow is to loosen its hold. To admit the clause is to choose whether it continues. This is the hidden teaching. You cannot break what you refuse to see. Dante's Inferno is not only a descent, it is an audit. A review of every contract written in the hidden ink of habit and desire. And when you see it, you understand why hell is not chaos, but order. Because every circle is simply a contract enforced. So ask yourself, what have you already signed? What agreements with hunger, with anger, with fear still bind you? And when the parchment is unrolled, will you claim ignorance? Or will you admit the truth? That you were the scribe all along? Every pact was written in your own hand? That hell is not a prison, but a contract you honored too well? If the architecture of hell is precise, then the moral code that shapes it is inverted. That is Dante's most unsettling revelation, not that sin exists, but that everything you were taught to fear might be something else entirely. The Inferno is not just a descent into punishment. It is a descent into inversion, where morality itself is turned inside out. And the truths you avoided stare back with demon eyes. Think of Lucifer, frozen waist deep in the lake of treachery at hell's core. You expect him wreathed in flame, crowned in thunder. Instead, you find him pathetic, wings flapping desperately. His own effort creating the icy wind that imprisons him further. This is inversion. The supposed king of evil is not triumphant but trapped, not powerful but impotent, his jaws chewing endlessly on Judas's Brutus. Cassius, the archetypes of betrayal. Lucifer is not fire, he is cold, not free, he is bound. And in this reversal lies the hidden code. The punishment is not opposite of the sin, it is its mirror. Pride sought freedom, but pride freezes. Ambition sought height, but ambition buries itself in ice. Consider Lilith, though Dante does not name her. She lurks as archetype in the shadows of lust. The first woman who refused submission, rebranded as demon. Her autonomy inverted into monstrosity. The storm that sweeps the lustful is not merely sexual lit, is the denial of sovereignty, the refusal to anchor desire in truth. Lilith is present as absence. The power you fear to claim becomes the prison you cannot escape. The inversion here is not punishment, is revelation. And Judas, his name is synonymous with treachery, yet his punishment is strange. Torn in Satan's mouth, eternally consumed, but never destroyed. His betrayal of Christ was an act of trust inverted. 30 pieces of silver, a covenant-turned weapon. His torment is not flame, but erasure. His body exists only as meat in Lucifer's maw, his identity stripped into symbol. Judas is not hated because he sinned worse than all others. He is hated because he inverted the sacred bond of loyalty into currency. He is the archetype of inversion itself. This is Dante's point. Sin is not chaos, it is inversion. Desire becomes storm, hunger becomes filth, wealth becomes collision. Wrath becomes swamp, pride becomes tomb, betrayal becomes ice. Each circle shows you not a foreign monstrosity, but something familiar turned against itself. That is why hell terrifies. It reveals how easily your virtues can become your vices. Sensory fragments etch the inversion deeper. The storm of lust feels like passion, but touch is denied. The mud of gluttony feels like fullness, but it is emptiness. The stones of greed feel like wealth, but they are burden. The fire of heresy burns not in freedom, but in tombs. The ice of treachery is not death, but a life stripped of motion. Each punishment is a mirror, and each mirror is inverted. Occult traditions knew this pattern well. The grimoires, demons are not villains, but personifications of human impulses. Ambition, sovereignty, knowledge dressed in monstrous form because society deemed them dangerous. Lucifer is Lightbringer, yet he is demonized. Lilith is autonomy, yet she is cast as child killer. He is severity, yet he is named poison. The inverted moral code tells you these are evil. But beneath the mask, they are forces you cannot live without. To deny them is to repress your own fire. Indulge them without discipline is to drown in your own shadow. Either way, the inversion defines you. That is why Dante's hell feels like ritual initiation. To descend is to face each inversion. To admit that what you thought was virtue may be fear, and what you thought was sin may be strength corrupted. The wrathful thrash because they let fire become identity. The heretics burn because they mistook ego for truth. The violent drown in blood because they turned vitality outward. The fraudulent twist because they used intellect as weapon. None of these are alien. They are you virtues, inverted, powers abused. But here is the hidden terror. The inverted code is not only in hell, it is in the world you walk daily. Greed is celebrated as ambition. Wrath is monetized as outrage. Lust is rebranded as freedom. Heresy is marketed as enlightenment. Fraud is rewarded as influence. Treachery is excused as strategy. The very sins Dante mapped are alive, praised, inverted into virtues. This is the system spell, to convince you that dissent is ascent, that poison is nectar, that ice is fire. And you consume it willingly, blind to the cost. Sensory layers of this inversion bleed into modern rituals. Stadiums roar with chants that feel like unity, but bind like chains. Advertisements glow like talismans promising joy, but deliver emptiness. Social media feeds flash like sigils, drawing you into endless rage, endless hunger, endless comparison. The ritual is familiar but inverted. You think you are free? In truth, you are repeating liturgies of dissent. This is the genius of Dante. He forces confrontation not with alien demons, but with yourself. He shows that the inverted moral code is already alive in your choices, already writing the shape of your soul. You are not punished for sin, you are shaped by it. You carry the architecture already. When you die, the shape simply reveals itself. The real horror of hell is not that it burns, it is that it makes sense. Every torment is logic. Every punishment is symbol. Every circle is your own energy inverted until it becomes prison. That is why you shiver at the imagery, not because it is grotesque, but because it is familiar, because you have felt it already. So ask yourself, which virtues have you inverted? Which desires have become storms? Which hunger's mud? Which loyalty's ice? And when you meet your reflection in the mirror of the Inferno, will you recognize it as punishment, or will you admit the truth? That the demon staring back is not stranger. It is you, inverted. Rituals are not confined to temples or occult chambers. They are the pulse of every circle in Dante's hell. The deeper you look, the more you see that each punishment is not just symbolic, it is ritualized repetition. Sin becomes ceremony, looping endlessly until the soul forgets where it ends and the ritual begins. Watch the lustful. They are not consumed in one burst of fire and then forgotten. They are swept eternally in storms, bodies tossed in rhythmic arcs, carried like dancers in a macabre choreography. Their punishment is not pain alone, is ritual motion, desire replayed again and again, longing rehearsed until it becomes liturgy. The storm is a chant, the wind a drumbeat, the cycle a sacrament. The gluttonous lie in the mud beneath the endless rain, Cerberus clawing at them. Nothing changes. No meal comes, no hunger ends. The ritual is stagnation. Each drop of filth is like a bead on a rosary, counted one after another without end. Their indulgence becomes devotion, their excess transformed into prayer of decay. The greedy crash their weights together round after round, in a cycle so predictable it could be a ritual dance. Hoarders and squanderers alike push and collide, step back and repeat. It is not random, it is liturgy. Their ceremony is futility. They are bound not by demons but by choreography, a dance they cannot stop performing. Fraud is perhaps the most grotesque ritual of all. The flatterers immersed in filth rehearse their lies in endless silence, their bodies speaking the truth their tongues never did. The false prophets walk backward forever, heads twisted, a parade of irony. The hypocrites march beneath golden cloaks, step by step, as though in procession, but the procession never ends. Their leaden burdens never lightened. Even their punishment is ritual theater. Costumes, masks, choreography. It is grotesque, but it is ceremony, a treachery of the ice. Silence itself becomes ritual here. Stillness, the frozen tears, the endless gnawing of Lucifer's jaws. Even immobility is a ritual. The absence of movement, the absence of sound, repeated without end, until absence itself becomes liturgy. Ritual does not always require noise or chant. Sometimes it is the endless repetition of nothing. The ritual of negation is the architecture of hell, not random agony, but ritual cycles. Sins do not vanish into fire, they calcify into ceremony. This is why hell feels alive. It is not chaos, it is liturgy. It is the ritual of the soul, trapped in its own distortion. Now open your eyes to the modern world. Do you see the same patterns? Crowds in stadiums rise as one, hands over hearts, voices chanting anthems. It feels like patriotism, but strip away the labels and you see it. Invocation, a ritual binding thousands to a symbol. The chant is wind, the symbol is flag, the atmosphere is liturgy. Scroll through social media and notice the rituals of outrage. A post sparks anger, voices rise, hashtags spread like chants, repeated until the rhythm consumes reason. Wrath becomes ceremony. Each comment an incantation, each share a bead in the rosary of rage. The ritual is endless, profitable, and invisible. Consider consumer culture. Stores pump music, scents, colors into carefully orchestrated cycles. You walk the aisles like a pilgrim. The swipe of your card, the offering, the receipt your scripture. Each purchase is a ritual act, repeated endlessly, feeding altars you do not name. You think you are buying? In truth, you are worshiping. The occult knew long ago that ritual is how the unconscious is programmed. It is not belief alone, it is repetition. Repetition carves grooves. Grooves become architecture. Architecture becomes prison. This is the secret link between Dante's hell and our world. Ritual is everywhere. Every circle, every punishment, every modern system, they are all ceremonies binding souls into cycles. Sensory echoes betray this truth. Hear the chants of crowds like the winds of lust. Smell the stench of endless consumption in neon-lit food courts echoing gluttony. Feel the weight of endless bills and debts colliding like stones in greed. See the icy stares of betrayed lovers reflecting the frozen lake of treachery. You do not need to die to witness these rituals. You live inside them already. Here lies the terror. Rituals are not neutral. They bind the soul, whether chosen or not. If you do not create your own rituals, you are living inside someone else's. Every anthem, every advertisement, every algorithm is liturgy designed to shape you. You may laugh at the witch lighting candles, but you stand daily in ceremonies more potent than her rituals of consumption, outrage, obedience. The real difference is that she knows what she's doing. You do not. This is why Dante's Inferno reads like a grimoire. It is not just story. It is ritual exposure. To read it is to watch the ceremonies of distortion laid bare, to see how cycles imprison the soul, and to recognize that ritual is not optional. It is everywhere. The only question is, whose ritual are you rehearsing? The occult inversion is clear. Ritual can enslave, but it can also liberate. A candle lit with intention breaks the ritual of distraction. A prayer spoken in truth severs the ritual of deception. Breath taken in silence can dissolve the ritual of rage. Awareness is exorcism. To recognize the cycle is to reclaim the script. To claim ritual as your own is to step out of hell. So the descent into hell is not just descent into punishment. It is descent into recognition. To see that sin is not random failure, but repeated ritual. To admit that your life is already ceremony, and the only choice you have is whether to let it bind or let it awaken. Hell is not filled with demons swinging whips. Hell is filled with rituals repeating themselves endlessly, mercilessly, perfectly. And when you see it, you cannot unsee. The question then is simple, but terrifying. Will you keep repeating the rituals you inherited, or will you write your own? Awakening does not come with trumpets or revelation. It arrives quietly, like the faint crack of ice beneath your feet. Like a whisper in a crowded room that suddenly makes every other sound fall silent. One moment you move through the world as if it were solid, unquestionable. The next you see the fissures, the hidden geometry beneath every gesture. In one scene, it cannot be unseen. Dante's Inferno is not merely a tour of horrors. It is a manual of recognition. Every circle forces you to admit what you already knew, but refuse to face. The storm of lust, the mud of gluttony, the collisions of greed, the swamp of wrath, the tombs of heresy. The blood river of violence, the grotesque parades of fraud, the frozen lake of treachery. They are not just punishments, they are mirrors. Each one shows you what ritualized distortion looks like when it hardens into permanence. An awakening is the moment you realize you have already walked through these landscapes, not in some afterlife, but here in the rituals of daily existence. Think of lust, bodies swept endlessly by desire without ground. Have you not felt the same when compulsions carry you? When craving consumes judgment? When passion strips you of anchor? Think of gluttony, the mud of endless consumption. Have you not scrolled until numb, eaten without hunger, purchased without need, filled yourself only to feel emptier? Greeds, collisions, wraths, swamp, frauds, theater. You recognize them because you have lived them. The Inferno terrifies not because it is alien, but because it is familiar. Awakening is simply the courage to stop pretending otherwise. And when you awaken, the system reveals itself. What you once thought was random politics, commerce, media, entertainment suddenly aligns into ritual cycles. You hear the anthem and recognize the invocation. See the logo and recognize the sigil. You scroll the feed and recognize the liturgy of outrage. You watch the news and recognize the architecture of fear. These are not accidents, they are circles. Not underground, but everywhere. The Inferno was not prophecy, it was diagnosis. Sensory cracks sharpen the recognition. Colors feel charged, as if every advertisement hides a ritual glyph. The rhythm of chants at rallies thuds in your chest like the winds of lust. The silence of betrayal chills you with the same frost as Dante's lake. Your body knows before your mind admits it. You are inside a system, one built on ritual repetition, fueled by sacrifice, bound by contracts invisible, yet absolute. The more you notice, the heavier the air feels. At first, awakening is terror. You see how deep the descent has already gone. You realize how often you have signed without reading, bled without meaning, chanted without awareness. The walls close in because the realization is merciless. Hell is not below, it is here. You are already participating in its rituals. The laughter you gave when you mocked magic, the indifference you showed when you consumed thoughtlessly, the loyalty you pledged to empty symbols, all of it was signature. Awakening is not discovering hell. It is discovering that you are already inside its system. But terror soon transforms into clarity. Because once you see the code, you also see the cracks. Rituals bind because they are unconscious. Contracts enslave because they are unseen. Symbols dominate because they are unrecognized. Blood drains because you do not count it. The moment awareness enters, the binding loosens. A candle lit with intention severs the feed. A pause in silence breaks the chant. A refusal to sign rewrites the contract. You realize that the same mechanics that imprison can also liberate. Ritual is not enemy. It is tool. This is why Dante ends his journey not in despair, but in ascent. After ice and silence, after witnessing Lucifer's impotent flapping wings, he climbs. By miracle, not by divine rescue, but by endurance. By facing each circle, by refusing to look away, he earns the right to rise. The stars above do not erase hell. They contextualize it. Awakening does not mean escaping the system instantly. It means navigating it with sight. It means choosing which rituals you feed and which you dissolve. Cult tradition has always whispered the same truth. Initiation requires descent. You cannot rise without first seeing the depths. The soul must face its own contracts, its own inversions, its own rituals of distortion. Only then can it claim authorship. Dante's Inferno is simply one version of the initiation path. To go down, to recognize, to confront, and then to climb. But awakening is dangerous, because once you see, you cannot return. You cannot unhear the chants as liturgy, cannot unsee the sigils in every logo, cannot unfelt the frost of betrayal. The system relies on your blindness. Awareness fractures it. That is why awakening feels like exile. Suddenly you no longer belong in the ritual chorus. You step out of sync, and in doing so, you step into sovereignty. And yet, sovereignty is heavy. It strips away excuses. I can no longer claim ignorance. If you remain in the storm, it is choice. If you keep colliding with greed, it is consent. If you drown in wrath, it is participation. The mirror does not lie. Awakening gives you back your pen, and with it comes responsibility. So the question becomes, what will you write now? Which rituals will you rehearse? Which contracts will you sign? Which symbols will you charge? You are no longer spectator. You are scribe, architect, magician. The Inferno has revealed its blueprint. Awakening is your invitation to redraw it. Sensory imagination carries you upward. Picture the cold of treachery cracking beneath your feet, the silence splitting into sound. Picture yourself climbing through narrow tunnels, emerging beneath a sky not filled with slogans or sigils, but with stars. Stars that burn not as symbols of control, but as reminders of infinity. That is the promise of awakening. Not escape from hell, but recognition that ascent is possible, one step at a time, once you stop lying to yourself. Hell was never chaos, it was always system. Awakening is realizing you were never only a victim of it. You are also a participant. The moment you accept that truth, you begin to change your role. From pawn to player. From sinner to scribe. From prisoner to pilgrim. The descent has done its work. The symbols have spoken. The rituals have revealed themselves. The contracts are unrolled, and the mirror stares back.
Hi.
The only question left is, now that you see the system, what will you do with it? Hell was never fire, it was structure. Once you've seen its design, you cannot unsee it. The question is simple. Will you keep rehearsing their rituals, or carve your own path upward? Comment your thoughts, subscribe, and prepare. The next descent reveals the alchemy of transformation.